The fluorescent lights in Garrett Holloway's office were buzzing the way they always did when the building's electrical system was under strain. He sat across from me with his legs crossed, scrolling through something on his iPad while my performance binder sat unopened between us. 6 years of documented results, client testimonials, and system architecture blueprints that I'd spent 2 weeks compiling, and this man hadn't even cracked the cover. "I appreciate you putting this together, Marcus," Garrett said without looking up. "But we've decided to go in a different direction for the infrastructure director role. Derek Calloway will be stepping into the position starting next quarter. We think his fresh perspective and modern cloud-first approach is what the department needs going forward." Derek Calloway, 29 years old, been at Ridgewater Financial for 11 months. Couldn't tell you the difference between a load balancer and a lunch break if his quarterly bonus depended on it. But he had a Stanford CS degree, a wardrobe that looked like a tech startup catalog, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having been responsible for anything that actually mattered. I kept my expression steady. 18 years in the Army teaches you that. When you've sat across from a commanding officer telling you your squad is being redeployed to Fallujah for a third rotation, some VP in a slim-fit blazer doesn't exactly rattle your composure. "Understood," I said. "I appreciate you letting me know." Garrett finally looked up, clearly relieved I wasn't making a scene. "Great. Glad we're aligned. Oh, and the Meridian Bank migration is still on track for this weekend, right? Their CTO has been calling me directly, which is a little uncomfortable. I need you to make sure that goes flawlessly." I picked up my binder and walked out. "My name is Marcus Dalton. I'm 52 years old, and for 6 years, I was the person who kept Ridgewater Financial's entire technology infrastructure from collapsing, not the person who presented at board meetings, not the person whose name appeared on press releases when we landed new clients. I was the one who answered the phone at 2 a.m. when servers crashed, who rebuilt our disaster recovery systems from scratch after the previous IT director quit mid-contract, and who personally maintained relationships with every major banking client that trusted us with their data. I came to Ridgewater after my Army career ended and my marriage ended with it. Rachel couldn't take another deployment, another missed anniversary, another phone call at midnight pulling me away from our daughter's life. The divorce was clean, but it gutted me. Sophie was 12 when I signed the papers, and the look on her face when I explained that Daddy was going to have a different house now still wakes me up some nights. I needed stability, regular hours, good health insurance, a paycheck that could cover child support and still let me save for Sophie's future. The Army had trained me as a signals intelligence specialist, which in civilian terms meant I understood networks, encryption, and infrastructure at a level most IT people never reach. When you're responsible for communication systems in a combat zone, you learn that redundancy isn't optional, and downtime can cost lives. Different stakes in corporate America? Sure, but the discipline transfers. Ridgewater was a disaster when I started. Their previous IT director had been running the infrastructure like a personal fiefdom. No documentation, no standardized procedures, passwords stored in a spreadsheet on his desktop that nobody else could access. When he left, he took every piece of institutional knowledge with him, and the company was hemorrhaging clients because systems kept failing. I spent my first 8 months working 16-hour days, rebuilt the entire network architecture from the ground up, documented every single process, created runbooks for every scenario, established monitoring systems that could predict failures before they happened, wrote a 400-page technical operations manual that covered everything from routine maintenance to catastrophic failure recovery, color-coded tabs, cross-referenced indices. The whole thing organized the way we did field manuals in the Army, because when things go wrong at 3 a.m., you need to find answers fast. The Meridian Bank account was our crown jewel, a $22 million annual contract to manage their entire digital banking infrastructure. I'd built that relationship personally, spending weekends at their data center in Charlotte, troubleshooting integration issues their own engineers couldn't solve. Their CTO, a sharp woman named Patricia Feng, specifically requested me for every technical discussion. "Dalton speaks our language," she told Garrett once during a quarterly review. "He doesn't just understand systems, he understands banking compliance." Garrett's father, CEO Richard Holloway, barely understood what our infrastructure team did. Why would he, when everything ran like clockwork under my watch? Garrett attended maybe 4 client meetings total in 6 years, always showing up at the end to shake hands and claim credit during annual reviews. Every morning I was logged into our monitoring systems by 6 a.m., 2 hours before my shift technically started. I'd review overnight alerts, check backup completion logs, Verify that all client-facing systems were performing within acceptable parameters. My old platoon sergeant used to say that the enemy attacks when you're sleeping, and he was right. A memory leak building overnight, a backup failing silently, a security certificate about to expire. You catch these things early, or you explain to angry bank executives why their customers can't access their accounts. Every evening I sent Garrett detailed status reports covering system health, pending maintenance windows, potential risks on the horizon. Between those reports, I was the person everyone called when something broke. Danny Vasquez, our senior network engineer, used to joke that my desk was the only place in the building where problems actually got solved, instead of just escalated to another meeting. Sophie was 20 now, a junior at UNC studying biomedical engineering. Brilliant kid, the kind of student who made Dean's List while working part-time at a research lab. She'd inherited her mother's determination and, for better or worse, my stubbornness. But graduate school was expensive, and she'd already taken on more student loans than I was comfortable with. The promotion to infrastructure director would have meant a $40,000 raise plus equity, enough to help Sophie finish her degree debt-free and maybe start a proper savings account for the first time in my life. That promotion was supposed to change everything. The night after Garrett's rejection, I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching. Sophie had texted me a photo of her latest lab results, something about protein folding analysis, with a string of excited emojis. I stared at that text for 20 minutes, thinking about the fact that my daughter was building a future, while her father was apparently not qualified to manage the systems he'd been running for 6 years. I made a decision before I fell asleep. Not an angry decision. A calculated one. I logged into the monitoring system at exactly 8 a.m. the next morning. Not 6 a.m., not 7:15. 8 o'clock sharp. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't review the overnight alerts before the rest of the team arrived, didn't check the backup logs, didn't verify client system performance. I opened my email, responded only to messages directly addressed to me, and began working on my assigned responsibilities, specifically the compliance documentation that was technically my primary job function. When our monitoring dashboard started flashing amber alerts for the Meridian Bank staging environment around 9:30, I noted the alert, created a service ticket in our tracking system, and assigned it to the appropriate on-call engineer. Standard procedure, exactly as written in the operations manual that nobody besides me had ever opened. By 10:15, Danny Vasquez appeared at my desk, looking confused. "Hey Marcus, the Meridian staging environment is throwing memory errors. Same issue we had last quarter, the one where you reconfigured the heap allocation. You want to jump on that?" I looked up from the compliance spreadsheet I was updating. I submitted a ticket. Should be in the queue. Danny blinked. "Right, but you always just handle the Meridian stuff directly. Patricia's team has a load test scheduled for tomorrow, and if staging is down, they'll have to postpone." "The ticket's in the system," I repeated. "The on-call engineer should be able to reference the runbook." Section 12 covers memory management for the banking platform. Danny stood there for a few seconds, waiting for me to add something. 12 years we'd worked together. He'd started as a junior tech, right around the same time I did. Worked his way up to senior engineer. Good man. The kind of colleague who'd swap shifts with you when personal stuff came up. He knew me well enough to know something was off. "Everything okay, man?" "Just focusing on my core responsibilities," I said with a small smile. Trying to stay in my lane, he walked away slowly, glancing back twice. The ticket sat in the queue for 3 hours before Kevin from the Tier 2 team picked it up. Kevin was a decent engineer for routine tasks, but the Meridian platform had custom configurations that I'd built specifically for their compliance requirements. He spent 45 minutes staring at the logs before coming to my desk. "Marcus, I can't figure out this memory allocation issue. The configuration doesn't match anything in our standard documentation. Can you walk me through it?" "I'd be happy to help, but I'm working on the SOC2 compliance audit documentation that's due to the financial regulators by Friday." "Have you checked the operations manual?" Section 12. Subsection C covers the Meridian-specific memory configurations. Kevin's eyes went wide. "That manual is like 400 pages long. It's well indexed," I assured him. "There are screenshots and step-by-step instructions for every scenario. I wrote it specifically so anyone on the team could handle these situations independently." The staging environment stayed broken all day. At exactly 5 p.m., I saved my work, shut down my laptop, and left. On the drive home, I called Sophie. She picked up on the second ring, which was unusual since she was typically buried in coursework at this hour. "Dad, is everything okay? You never call on a Tuesday." Just wanted to hear your voice, I said. How's the lab going? She launched into a 10-minute explanation of her research project that I only half understood but completely loved listening to. Something about using machine learning to predict protein structures for drug development. The excitement in her voice reminded me of Rachel when she used to talk about her teaching, before the deployments wore that excitement away. Dad, you sound different, Sophie said when she finally paused for breath. Did something happen at work? I thought about how to explain workplace politics to a 20-year-old who still believed the world rewarded hard work. Just realized my time is worth more than I've been charging for it. She laughed. About time, old man. When I checked my work phone after we hung up, there were 23 missed calls and 41 unread messages. Patricia Feng's team had discovered the staging environment was still down and had escalated directly to Garrett. Garrett had tried to escalate to Derek Calloway, our shiny new infrastructure director, who had responded with a suggestion to reboot the servers. Rebooting the Meridian banking platform without following the proper shutdown sequence would have corrupted 3 days' worth of transaction logs and triggered an automatic regulatory audit. Danny had caught the order just in time and refused to execute it. I set the phone on my kitchen counter and made myself dinner for the first time in months instead of eating takeout at my desk. By Wednesday morning, the situation had escalated significantly. I arrived at precisely 8 a.m. to find the office in visible disarray. Derek Calloway was standing in the server room doorway with his laptop, looking like a college student who'd wandered into the wrong exam. 3 engineers were arguing about the Meridian memory configuration, while a 4th was on the phone with what sounded like an increasingly irritated client. The staging environment was still down. Patricia Feng's team had postponed their load test, which meant the production migration scheduled for Saturday was now in jeopardy. A $22 million annual contract hanging by a thread because nobody had read Section 12C of a manual I'd written 4 years ago. I settled at my desk and opened the SOC 2 audit files. Garrett appeared at my workstation at 9:30, looking like he hadn't slept. His usual polished appearance was cracked, tie crooked, shirt wrinkled in a way that suggested he'd changed in his office. Marcus, we need to talk about the Meridian situation. Of course. What can I help with? Patricia Feng called me directly at 11 p.m. last night. She's threatening to invoke the contract's service-level penalties if staging isn't operational by end of business today. That's a $350,000 penalty per incident. Do you understand what that means? I nodded thoughtfully. That sounds serious. Has Derek been able to diagnose the issue? He's the infrastructure director now. This would fall under his purview. Garrett's jaw tightened. Derek is still getting up to speed on the Meridian systems. You know how complex they are. I do, I agreed. That's why I wrote a 400-page manual documenting every component, every configuration, every troubleshooting procedure. It's on the shared drive. I referenced it during last quarter's department meeting. He stared at me for a long moment. I need you to fix this. Now. I turned my monitor so he could see the compliance spreadsheet. I would, but the SOC 2 documentation is due to the financial regulators by Friday. Missing that deadline could trigger a formal review of our entire security posture, which would affect every client, not just Meridian. You could see the moment it clicked. The realization that I'd always been juggling these competing priorities silently, making sure nothing ever fell through the cracks, so that men like Garrett and Derek could sleep soundly while taking credit for the smooth operation they contributed nothing to. Can't you do both? Not without working outside my contracted hours, I said evenly. And I've decided to maintain better work-life balance. My daughter's been telling me I work too much, and she's right. Garrett's hands were actually shaking. He turned and walked away without another word. That evening, I drove to Sophie's campus. She wasn't expecting me, so the surprise on her face when she opened her dorm room door was worth the 2-hour drive. Dad, what are you doing here? Is everything okay? I held up a bag from her favorite Thai restaurant. Thought you might want dinner with your old man. We sat on the floor of her tiny dorm room eating pad thai and talking about everything. Her research, her roommate drama, a boy in her organic chemistry class who kept asking her to study together. She showed me the lab where she worked, the whiteboard covered in molecular diagrams I couldn't decipher, the microscope she'd named Gerald for reasons she couldn't explain. Mom called last week, Sophie said quietly as we were cleaning up. She asked how you were doing. What'd you tell her? That you were working yourself to death, same as always. She paused. But maybe I'll have to update her. I smiled. Maybe you will. On the drive home, I checked my voicemail. 67 missed calls. The Meridian staging environment was still down. Patricia Feng had emailed Garrett, Derek, and Richard Holloway directly, CCing her legal team. Derek had attempted a fix that morning using a standard configuration template, not realizing the Meridian platform used custom parameters I'd designed specifically for their compliance requirements. His fix had not only failed to resolve the memory issue, but had also disrupted the authentication protocols, meaning Meridian's QA team could no longer access the staging environment at all. The voicemails ranged from confused to panicked. Danny's message was the most informative. "Marcus, I don't know what's going on with you, but this place is falling apart." Derek told the team to implement a standard failover, and it nearly wiped the transaction staging database. Richard Holloway flew in from his vacation house in Hilton Head. "There's an emergency meeting tomorrow morning, and your name was mentioned about 15 times. I turned off the phone and slept soundly. Thursday morning, I walked in at 8 a.m. to a building that felt like a hospital during a crisis. People were moving quickly, talking in hushed voices, carrying laptops between conference rooms. Through the glass walls of Conference Room A, I could see Richard Holloway, Garrett, Derek Calloway, and on the large monitor, Patricia Feng's unmistakable face. I sat at my desk and opened the SOC 2 files. It took 12 minutes for Garrett's assistant to appear. "Marcus, emergency meeting, now." I gathered a notebook and walked calmly to the conference room. When I entered, 5 faces turned toward me with varying degrees of desperation. Richard Holloway spoke first. He was 63, built like a former athlete, with silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that made you understand how he'd built a financial services company from nothing. Right now, he looked exhausted. "Marcus, thank God, we need your help." I sat down and placed my notebook on the table. "Of course, sir. What's going on?" Patricia Feng's voice came through the speakers, precise and controlled the way banking executives are when they're furious. "Mr. Dalton, our staging environment has been down for 3 days. My team cannot perform the load testing required for Saturday's production migration. If this migration doesn't happen on schedule, we will miss our regulatory filing window, which exposes both Meridian and Ridgewater to federal penalties. I need to know if you can resolve this today." I nodded. "Can you describe the specific failure mode your team is seeing?" She outlined the symptoms: authentication failures, memory allocation errors, cascading timeout issues across the staging cluster. I recognized the pattern immediately because I designed the system. Every failsafe, every redundancy layer, every custom configuration. It was like hearing someone describe your own child's behavior. That's a cascading authentication failure triggered by mismatched memory allocation parameters, I said. The custom Meridian configuration uses a non-standard heap size to accommodate your compliance logging requirements. Someone appears to have applied a standard template over the custom settings, which broke the authentication handshake with your compliance monitoring layer. Derek Calloway shifted uncomfortably. I was following best practices. The standard template should have worked. I turned to him, not with anger, but with the patient tone you use when training a new private. The standard template works for standard configurations. Meridian's platform was purpose-built for their specific regulatory requirements. The custom parameters are documented in the Operations Manual, Section 12C, pages 287 through 315. There was a silence that reminded me of the moment in a briefing room when everyone realizes the mission plan has a fatal flaw. Garrett leaned forward. "Marcus, what will it take to fix this today?" I looked around the table. Richard Holloway's face was a mask of controlled anxiety. Garrett looked like a man watching his career flash before his eyes. Derek was staring at his hands. On the screen, Patricia Feng waited with the calm patience of someone who holds a $22 million contract and knows exactly how much leverage that gives her. "I can have staging operational within 2 hours, I said, "and I can personally oversee the production migration Saturday to ensure it goes smoothly. But I should mention something first." The room went still. "I've received an offer from Castellan Defense Technologies, Senior VP of Infrastructure. They've been interested in my experience with secure financial systems for military contractor payroll platforms." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You're leaving us?" "I haven't accepted yet," I replied. "I wanted to evaluate all my options before making a decision." Patricia Feng spoke from the screen. "Mr. Holloway, Marcus is the reason we've maintained our contract with Ridgewater. If your organization can't retain him, we'll need to reassess whether Ridgewater is the right partner for our infrastructure needs." That was the kill shot. Meridian wasn't just $22 million a year. They were our reference client. Every other major banking contract we'd won in the last 5 years had asked for case studies of our Meridian work. work that I had done. Lose Meridian, and the dominoes would fall. Richard Holloway stood up. Marcus, let's talk privately. Garrett, handle the immediate technical issues with Derek's support. Patricia, we'll have your staging environment operational within 2 hours. You have my personal guarantee. I followed Richard to his office on the top floor. He closed the door and sat down heavily behind his desk. I'm going to be direct with you, Marcus. I clearly haven't been paying close enough attention to how this department operates. Tell me what happened. So I told him. Not emotionally, not as a complaint. I laid it out the way I'd deliver a mission brief. 6 years of arriving early, staying late, maintaining every system, building every client relationship, training every new hire. The promotion denied in favor of someone with 11 months of experience. The decision to simply perform my contracted duties and nothing more. The 3 days of chaos that followed. Richard listened without interrupting. When I finished, he rubbed his forehead. How much is Castellan offering? I told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then, he said something I didn't expect. You remind me of my old operations chief when I was in the Marines. Staff sergeant named Morales. Ran everything, knew everything, never got promoted because he wasn't political enough. One day he put in for transfer and our entire battalion went sideways within a week. Took us 6 months to recover. He looked at me. I'm not going to let that happen here. I'm creating a new position, Chief Technology Officer, reporting directly to me, not through Garrett. $185,000 base plus performance bonuses tied to client retention and system uptime. Full authority over all infrastructure decisions, hiring, architecture, vendor relationships, and I'll match Castellan's equity offer. That number hit me hard. It was more than double my current salary, enough to pay off Sophie's student loans entirely, fund her graduate school, maybe even buy a small house instead of renting. But I didn't answer immediately. That's very generous, I said. But compensation isn't the only issue. What else? I need to know that this company recognizes technical expertise as leadership, not just business development, not just client-facing polish. The people who build and maintain the systems that make everything else possible deserve clear career paths. I want to establish a technical leadership track. Senior engineers who don't want to become managers shouldn't be stuck at the same level for a decade. Richard studied me with new respect. You're not just negotiating for yourself. I've got 12 engineers on my team who've watched me get passed over, I said. If I accept this role and nothing changes for them, I've just proved that the only way to get ahead here is to threaten to leave. That's not a system. That's hostage negotiation. He actually laughed at that. Fair point. Draft a proposal for the technical leadership track. I'll review it personally. One more thing, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Derek Calloway stays. He's not experienced enough yet, but he's not incompetent. He just needs mentoring from someone who understands these systems, not a title he hasn't earned the knowledge to carry. Move him to a senior architect role under me, give him 2 years to learn the infrastructure properly, and then reassess. That's generous, considering he got the job that should have been yours. I shook my head. In the Army, we didn't succeed by tearing down the people above us or below us. We succeeded by putting the right people in the right positions and giving them the training to excel. If I start this role by getting someone fired, I'm building my authority on fear. I'd rather build it on competence. Richard stood and extended his hand. Fix the Meridian situation today. Take the weekend to think about the offer. Monday morning, I want your answer. I went back downstairs and spent 2 hours restoring the Meridian staging environment. The fix itself took 40 minutes. The rest of the time I spent documenting exactly what had gone wrong, creating a simplified quick reference guide for the custom configurations, and walking Danny through the process so he could handle similar issues independently. When I logged into the migration platform Saturday morning, Danny was already online. Everything's green across the board, he typed. Your documentation is scary good, by the way. I actually read the whole section last night. First time for everything, I typed back. The migration went flawlessly. Patricia Feng sent an email to Richard Holloway personally commending the work. She didn't mention Garrett or Derek. Sunday morning, Sophie called. I was sitting on my apartment balcony, drinking coffee, watching the sunrise in a way I hadn't done in years because I was usually already logged in and working. Dad, you sound relaxed. That's suspicious. I laughed. Can't a man just enjoy his coffee? She was quiet for a moment. Mom told me you got passed over for that promotion. I'm sorry, Dad. Don't be. It turned into something better. She paused again. You know what I remember most about when you were deployed? Not the scary parts, not wondering if you were okay. I remember the times you'd call and you sounded tired, but you'd always ask about my day first. Every single time. My teacher, my friends, my soccer games. You always asked about me before you told me about you. I felt my throat tighten. Your mom taught me that. Said the best thing a parent can give is their attention. Well, she was right. And lately you've been giving more of it. Whatever changed at work, keep doing it. Monday morning I arrived at 7 a.m. My choice this time. I walked into Richard's office. I accept, I said. With the conditions we discussed, he nodded. Welcome aboard, Chief. 4 months later, the transformation was tangible. I'd hired 2 senior engineers who'd been wasted at other companies, promoted Danny to principal engineer, and established the technical leadership track with clear milestones and compensation bands. Derek Calloway had surprised everyone, including me, by thriving in his new architect role. Freed from pretending to understand systems he'd never learned, he turned out to have a genuine talent for system design when someone actually taught him the fundamentals. The Meridian contract expanded to include their mobile banking platform, an additional $8 million annually. Patricia Feng told Richard that the expansion was solely based on her confidence in our technical leadership, and she used my name specifically. Garrett and I reached an understanding. He handled business development, client relationships, and corporate strategy. I handled everything technical. We stayed out of each other's lanes and the company ran better than it ever had. 6 months after that Monday morning, I left the office at 5:30 on a Friday. Sophie was graduating the following week, a semester early because of course she was. I'd already booked the hotel, invited Rachel, and cleared my schedule for the entire week. First real vacation I'd taken in 6 years. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from Sophie. Dad, got my lab results back. The protein folding model works. Dr. Chen says it could be publishable. Also, I found an apartment near the graduate school. It's affordable if someone were hypothetically willing to help with the deposit. I smiled and typed back. Send me the details, and congratulations, sweetheart. Your mom and I are proud of you. 3 dots appeared, then her reply. Thanks, Dad, for everything. Not just the money stuff. For showing up, finally. I sat in my car for a minute, thinking about the version of myself from 7 months ago, the one who arrived before dawn and left after dark, who answered every call and solved every crisis and never once demanded recognition for it. That man thought loyalty meant sacrifice without reward. Thought being indispensable meant being valued. It doesn't. Being indispensable just means they'll use you until you break, then find someone cheaper. The moment I stopped being invisible and started being unavailable, they finally saw what they'd been taking for granted. But here's what I learned that matters more than the promotion, or the salary, or the title. When I stopped giving every hour to a company that didn't value my time, I got those hours back. And I spent them on the person who actually deserved them. The phone calls with Sophie that I'd been cutting short, the Sunday morning coffees I'd been skipping, the simple act of being present in my own life instead of maintaining someone else's. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't working harder, it's stopping, and letting the silence speak for itself.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. But now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to. There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you.